Good morning. Welcome to day 31 of the journey. Good to be with you again. I'm at Prineville Reservoir on a deck overlooking the water here. We're on day 31. We begin a new week focused on the question of Jesus. How do you believe what I say when you don't believe what Moses said? It's a very important question because kind of we're the people that Jesus is asking it to, as you will read in the devotion. This week we're joining the disciples on the road to Emmaus. There are two Gospels with post-resurrection experiences with Jesus. The Gospel of John, when Jesus on the beach asked Peter, "Do you love me?" Of course, we looked at that last week. That was a post-resurrection chapter in the Gospel of John. Matthew and Mark don't have post-resurrection appearances of Jesus. Luke has, in chapter 24, a whole chapter on the post-resurrection appearance of Jesus to these two disciples on the road to Emmaus. So as we get to this point in our journey, we join the resurrected Jesus when he had come back from the dead. And as the resurrected Lord, what did he want to ask his disciples? In a fascinating way, Jesus on the road to Emmaus asks the two disciples, not two of the 12, not one of those 12 disciples that we know, but people who were followers, Cleopas and another disciple. Jesus asks them 5 questions. We'll be spending this week with each one of those. We begin today on this week with the question of credibility. Jesus asks in our lesson for today, in our text for today in John chapter 5, "If you believe Moses, you would have believed me, for he wrote about me. But if you don't believe what he wrote, how will you believe what I say?" Well, you believe what he says when he confirms that everything about him that was written was true by the prophets and by Moses. Jesus confirms that by raising from the dead and confirming that everything that was written about him is true. That is pretty good confirmation. Now, as we'll see this week, Jesus enters into the messiness of the disciples' lives as they were wandering, and Jesus confirms everything about him that had been taught by the prophets, all of the things that they had said about the coming of the Messiah. And in the devotion today, I suggest that the disciples who were wandering along were feeling a huge amount of betrayal and hurt and disorientation. Jesus walked along with him. They didn't recognize him right away. But when they did, Jesus rocked their world and gave them a vision and a direction for their lives. He put new meaning and purpose and a vision in their heads. He set their hearts on fire with the power of the Holy Spirit and asked them to lead responsive lives because of the verifiable fact that he had been raised from the dead. I'd like to suggest you spend some time at this point in this transformative journey through Lent on the questions in the devotion today. Do you ever feel like those two disciples kind of meandering through life without a clear sense of vision and direction for your life? I believe that every fiber of my being that God has a purpose for us in our meanderings, in our disorienting kind of times, even when things are going well, that God has a purpose for us. But I think personally that if you think you can't know that purpose, or if you think that God does not have a purpose or direction for your life, you won't find it. It's kind of like the Roger Bannister devotion or example that I used earlier on, when Roger Bannister said to people that the 4-minute mile was a barrier in people's heads, but it was not a physical barrier. It's the same kind of thing. If you believe that God has a purpose for your life and that you can discover it and live into it, then you're well on your way to a transformative journey through life and faith. And then look at that second question. A couple kids around here. What do you think? It's more important for you to be a witness to your faith than to argue with other people about their faith. You know, what do you think about that? Is it more important to argue people into your way of thinking, or simply to be a witness for what you believe in? And what difference would that make according to the way that you answer that question? What difference would it make in the way that you live your faith and share what is deep and personal to you? I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. It will be a good journey with the two disciples from Jerusalem to Emmaus. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.